In this life, if you are not enlightened, then you might as well be dead. All these lights and cameras just flashing, they just flash.
Welcome to the Prince Nana Show.
Ain't got no time for
Now here's
talking,
your
just
host,
action.
me,
Just action.
Prince Nana.
Got no time for games, it's just action. It's just action. And everything I do is with a passion.
What's up, my friends, my supporter, my family, all right, all the people who have been coming down weekly, all right, for the last couple of weeks and days to the Prince Nana Show. It really is a humbling experience to know that there's some people out there that want information from Prince Nana and the Embassy. They want to hear what we have going on. They want to know what the news is. They want to know what's funny, what's going on, who is this and who is that. This is where we are going to do it. And today's guest on the show, all right, here on the Prince Nana Show. I'm Prince Nana, by the way, all right. Anyone who is new, who has never heard of my channels, all right, I'm Prince Nana, all right. It's nice to meet you. I'm the host of the Prince Nana Show, all right. And today on the show, I have a unbelievable guest, a person that I consider a great friend, all right, in the wrestling business. Because in the wrestling business, people tend to forget that this is a business, all right. There's no friendship and loving and this and that. This is about capitalism, all right, being the best at your game and doing it the best that you can. But if you are able to get a friend, all right, in the business, who number one is at the top of their game, who is technically sound, who is a great performer, great character, great worker, great brother in the locker room, a great teacher, an influence, all right, to many people. Just because you're in the WWE or some big time company, that doesn't mean we have to look up to you. There's people all the way down in the lowest independent companies that people look up to, and that they're worth looking up to because of their positivity, all right, and their hunger, all right. The next person I'm gonna have here on the show today, man, he exclusifies, and I know I just made that word up, all right. He exclusifies the meaning of all those things, all right. And he's a really good friend, and many people can learn a lot from him. He should have been a world champion in many different companies. That's just my opinion. Ladies and gentlemen, here to talk with us today, it's going to be a really good conversation. My good friend and long-time Embassy alumni, Mr. John Walters. John, are you there?
John,
Huh?
how are you, my friend?
Huh?
Huh? Huh?
Bianto, you want to do the interview, Biantone?
Be Antoine. We're going to do the interview. Be Antoine, my friend.
Can you hear me good?
I can hear you perfectly. Can you hear me?
All day long, my friend, huh?
All day long. Wow, my friend. I was just telling all of my listeners before you came onto the line that I had a special guest, all right? Someone that I hold really dear to my heart, all right? And you know who that is? It's you, John Walters. How do you feel about that?
Oh man, how do I feel? You caught me off guard. I feel great. Huh?
Well, it's been so long, my friend, since I've actually seen you. I think it's been maybe about 5 years. Maybe I haven't seen you in maybe a little bit less than that, but maybe about 5 years. It was in New York City at the Hammerstein Ballroom, right?
Yeah, is that when I was that when I was in town? I think I was in town for the Lucha Libre USA Nightline piece, and then I went to the Ring of Honor show. Was that when I saw you? Was it that one?
Right. That was in New York City. We went out. You paid for dinner, which was, what I was expecting in the first place. All right. We had some shrimp cocktails. All right. We had some shrimp cocktails, and then I got rid of you when it was time to go to room 112. It was that simple, my friend.
I'm expendable, my friend. You just kicked me to the side.
John, what the heck have you been up to, my friend?
Well, lately nothing. Walking my dog, working out at home, doing a lot
Oh
of
man,
reading.
I miss that dog.
Yeah, a lot of reading. Yeah, my dog's almost 13, so um, this whole
Wow.
this whole thing has been kind of a blessing that I've been able to spend some more time with him. But
Oh, I can imagine that. So there's a lot more longer walks, so he
well,
could take poops all over the place, right? So extra pooping to pick up.
not extra, but the walks not too many walks to be honest with you. Like little 10-minute ones now because his left foot is starting to drag a little bit and he's got some joint problems. So um, you know, they age fast, and 13 years old in human years is what in his 90s now. So,
Oh man.
yeah,
Oh man, I mean, when I actually met your dog, it has to be at least 10 years ago. I remember meeting him almost 10 years ago. Her, or is it a girl or a boy?
boy, and you know, my dog, my current dog, you met the white pit bull, right?
Right.
See, this is going to show you right now how white people aren't racist. I'm gonna teach you a lesson right now. Okay, you listening? Listen to this. My white pit bull loves everybody, but my black German Shepherd did not like black people. Can you believe that?
Wow, can you believe what are you did you have that dog since he was a baby?
I had I had my Shepherd since he was a baby. I adopted my other one, so maybe that's saying something about the owner. I don't know.
Oh, okay, okay. I just wanted to make sure. Okay, he probably watched a couple of your promos and misinterpreted what you were trying to say. You know what I mean?
I think you might.
That RJ Brewer gimmick, that RJ Brewer thing you were doing, man, it had people fooled, my friend.
Shame on me, huh?
Man, you know, people don't know. All right, a lot of people don't really know the origins of Mr. John Walters. You know, I know everything, all right, because I had to do a lot of research before I was recruiting you, and before we actually became friends and you joined the embassy.
Uh-huh.
But what is the actual origins of John Walters? Is John Walters your name? Is that your real name when you were born? You came out John Walters, or is it something that you adapted while you were in Massachusetts? You're from Massachusetts, right?
Yeah, no, that's not my birth name, but Walters was kind of a tribute to my coach Walter Killer Kowalski. So I kind of was sitting with him one day and we were talking, and he was talking about, oh, people, I hope people remember me. I said, that's going to be my wrestling name. I'm going to call myself John Walters. So I kept the first name, adopted the Walters as part of a tribute to him, and yeah, and that's the name I used for the 3-4 years I did the RJ Brewer character. Other than that, yeah, John Walters was it. But
Well,
yeah.
that name, the name Walters, how is that in relation to Killer Kowalski?
Well, his first name was Walter, so Walter Kowalski.
Oh, I get it now. I get it. That's a really, really great tribute.
And yeah, and then I started wrestling under that name, and then I think it was 2009. So 9 years after I started, I switched over to RJ Brewer for about 4 years, 5 years maybe, and then I think it was 2014 when I stopped wrestling for about 4 years, and then I came back about a year and a half, 2 years ago, just for about a few months, and then was ready to go back to Ring of Honor for a show 2 months ago, but obviously the show got canceled because of the virus and the travel. So
Unfortunate. It's
right.
unfortunate. I mean, things happen, but I believe things are gonna, come back to where they were, where they left off when it comes as far as that matter is concerned. You know who just popped up in my head?
Who's that?
Mike Hollow. How is that guy doing? What a heck of a fellow he was.
Mike Hollow was the head trainer. So when I started training at Kowalski School, Kowalski at the time was older and was only getting in the ring on the weekends and kind of showing some shoot holds in the back room. Getting into the ring for him was difficult. So Mike Hollow was his head trainer, and he's the guy who really trained me and polished me. I mean, Kowalski's name was on the door, but Mike Hollow was the guy. When you look at guys like me and Arch Kincaid and Aaron Stevens, who was Damian Sandow, and a lot of those other chaotic wrestling guys, Mike Hollow was the guy who trained us and ran us through the drills and got us in the best conditioning. So he was the guy who didn't get the credit he deserved because, of course, Kowalski was the Hall of Famer and his name was on the door. But Mike,
right. Even though you became friends with Killer.
Right. Oh yeah. He was like his best student and went on to run his school. But Mike is he's still around. He does train guys privately, I think, up in the New England area. But he's got a few kids and a regular job that I think he does pretty well in. So he's kind of not really super involved anymore. But he does pop up every so often at shows, at training
Oh,
centers, and he does train some guys on the side. I believe he's still doing that.
next time I go to Massachusetts, I'll make sure to take him some peanut butter soup, all right? He's such a nice guy. I remember when I went down there, there was a tryout. It wasn't really a tryout, but it was a seminar, all right? And I believe it was with Dr. Tom Pritchard,
Yes.
all right? And Mike Harlow was running it. Very, very great seminar. I learned a lot. It was being held by Tom Pritchard and Jim Kedner and all those guys. I believe it was around that time when I met you, but that was a really good time. Do you stay in contact with any of the wrestlers that you started with? Any of the wrestlers that you started with in the WWE or in AEW or anything like that?
Out of the guys who I started with, not really. The only one that was in when I first started, Aaron Stevens, who was Damian Sandow, and then I think he did wrestle in TNA after. I'm not sure what his name was there, but he. I don't think he's wrestling much anymore. Well, he wrestles for NWA, I think. Does he not? Is he not?
I believe so. I believe so.
Other than that, I'm trying to think of guys that were in my class. I mean, like I trained with guys like Demon Ortiz, Luis Ortiz. He's still working independent.
Right.
Good friend of mine, Rich Palladino, the ring announcer who ring announces all over New England. He's a good friend of mine. I don't really talk to too many other guys from that era. Facebook messengers, Merry Christmas here and there, but no.
Right.
No super.
You were kind of all over. It seemed like at a point you were like kind of bi-coastal. I remember you were on the East Coast, you were living in Boston, then you moved to the West Coast for a little bit, and then you were in between. Where are you living now?
I'm in Florida now. So I moved down here in 2009, and I was here for about 5 years, and then I went out to California for almost 4 years. I kept one of my places here. I rented it out, so I still had a place here. And the plan was always to come back to the East Coast because my family's in Massachusetts. But I just wanted to give California a go. I had a friend out there, and I was done wrestling at that time, so I kind of wanted to go do some personal training, live on the other coast, and do some traveling because I like to travel. And it was a temporary move. It lasted almost 4 years. I had a good time, but I wanted to be closer to my family, but I didn't want to be in the cold, so I came back to Florida. So.
Right, I know you were doing some like real estate also, right? That was all. Were you doing real estate or were you doing like sanitation work? I don't know what. Or I forget exactly what you were doing. Or were you being a pimp? Which one was it?
Maybe all of the above. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I think it was all of the
above. Get the money, my friend. That's what I'm talking about. But I did work in mortgages briefly, but when it comes to real estate, I bought and sold a few homes, and I have a few now, and it's done well for me. I mean, real estate's one of those investments where you need a place to live, so it's never a bad thing to buy a house.
That's very true. Very true.
You look at the stock market, you look at gold, you look at stuff like that. It's all good to have that stuff, but you can't physically touch a stock, but a house you need a place to live. So if you get a good deal and your payment's not insanely high, why wouldn't you want to invest in something that you're going to enjoy?
And you need to be in.
Right, and over time, real estate always appreciates with inflation. So it's a good thing to have, and I learned that young. And I'm in a good position now, man. I'm going to probably build my dream house up in the Georgia mountains within the next year.
Oh wow! You better make sure I'm invited.
Oh yeah!
All right.
I'm gonna have
You better make sure that I'm invited. All right. And I don't want to be eating no grits. All right. Make sure we have some bacon, egg, and cheese with some pancakes and stuff like that. All right. I know you like to eat all that healthy schmelty stuff. You know what I mean?
I'll have a freezer full of some meat downstairs for you, my friend.
Pause, my friend. Pause. But real quick. You debuted in 2001. Who did you debut with, by the way? Do you remember?
I do. So when my first 2 matches, I think, were a battle royal. So of course I went in there, I got chopped 3 times, and I got thrown over the top. I think I wore some Adidas wind pants. I didn't even have gear at the time, but it was.
Oh yeah, I think I saw that match. I was like, who the heck is this guy right here with all the pimples on his back.
Yeah.
But go
Yeah.
ahead.
So what happened was they needed bodies. I wasn't even really ready, but they said, "Oh, this is good for you. You go in there and you learn how to work in front of a crowd." So the first two matches were battle royals, and then my first two singles matches were against Jimmy Cash. I don't know if you know who he is.
I know
Yeah.
him. I know Jimmy.
Yeah, so Jimmy Cash and I were the opening match. On my first singles match, his first singles match, we were the opening match on a show, and we used brass knuckles in the opening match and did a ref bump. So, so that tells you right there how ready we really were. But
Oh my God. That seems like everybody in the business. Everybody is like textbook one-on-one, do everything that you want. That's like crazy when you're first starting out in the business.
yeah, but we were taught not to do that. But of course, it was one of those deals where you when you're out there and you're planning your match because you're so excited to get out there and wrestle, you almost forget the basics and you want to really make a name for yourself. And we all want to slap our 20-year-old selves, right? So.
Right. At the end of the day, that's what. And it's funny because I was looking into the history books. You originally wanted to be a football player. What drew you to wanting to become a professional wrestler? What made you? What happened? Why did you stop pursuing football? Because I know you were a football player, and then what? And why did you even like wrestling?
So I was a wrestling fan from as far back as I remember. I remember, I think it was 1988, whatever year WrestleMania 4 was, and I think that was 1988.
Yes, I believe so. 88, 87, 88.
Yeah, I remember my family going over to my aunt's house, and my three cousins. Close family. My brothers, my father's sister. We went over. They lived in the same town. We went over there for, I think it was for Christmas or it was a holiday or some kind of party. And my older cousin was watching the year-end review of that year. Remember when WWF did the year-end review?
Right. I remember that.
It was my first time watching wrestling. He was telling me about everything. Strike Force came out. He told me, "Oh, these guys don't look that tough, but they're awesome." And then Hulk Hogan. I specifically remember the conversation I had with my cousin like it was yesterday about Strike Force. And yeah, then I just kind of got hooked, and I was a big fan. I used to buy the magazines, the action figures. My friends would go to the house shows. We'd go to all the shows. I was fanatical. I remember one night, it was a Saturday night's main event. Do you remember the Saturday night's main event where Dustin Rhodes debuted and he was in the crowd and DiBiase broke the chair over his head and he was bleeding?
Oh yeah, I remember that. Clearly.
I remember falling asleep and waking up the next morning almost crying that I missed the Saturday night's main event, and that was what had happened. And this is before the age of the internet, so
that's crazy because I was in that same situation and scenario when I used to miss Saturday night main event too, crying like a baby because I didn't get to see Andre the Giant squeeze Hulk Hogan's head. I used to love that.
It was so late; it didn't start till 11:30 p.m. Remember? So I think it was it was on the East Coast. It was 11:30 to 1. So that was late for me. And I remember I used to make all of them, but that particular night, I remember waking up at 8 in the morning asking my dad who won, and he's like, "I don't know." So just was a big
That's awesome.
Big fan, and then. When I graduated high school, I played football my senior year in high school. But when I graduated high school, I don't even think I was 140 pounds. I think it was like 137 pounds my senior year. So I was very light. Very skinny, very small. I was like 5'8". I hadn't hit my growth spurt yet. So I wanted to play college football. Wrestling was – I was still a wrestling fan, but I didn't even think about doing it because of how big the guys were. I was like, I'm not even going to think about it. So I started hitting the weights right after my senior year to play college football, and I gained like 3 inches and 20 pounds in that one summer because I hit my growth spurt and I started lifting weights.
Man, 20 pounds.
Yeah, so I got into college a little under 170, and I played college football for 2 years. My first year I didn't play at all. I think I caught the ball one time and got smashed like by 6 guys, and then my sophomore year playing college football, I got more playing time, and then the coach had told me, your junior year, you're going to start, you're going to be a starter, and I was ready to go. So my junior
This was you like in the back of your head, you were like, okay, this is what I'm gonna do. This is it.
Yeah, I was gonna play football for the next 2 years and hopefully be a starter and have some fun. I wasn't gonna go professional, but I was like, this is what I
Right, but you never
right.
know.
So right before my junior year, I had a lump in my throat. I had a cyst in
Oh my
my
God.
throat. It was benign. It wasn't anything cancerous, but it was starting to protrude out. So my doctor removed it the first week of my college classes junior year, and I had stitches all across my throat. I missed like the first 3 days of classes, and of course, I wasn't cleared to play football for a couple of weeks. So by then, I was like, you know what? I lost the love for it. I didn't even want to play anymore, and I had gained this weight, and I'm like, you know what? Why not try wrestling now? So I just started scouting
Right.
out schools, and I wrote a letter to Killer Kowalski. He responded. I drove out there, talked to him, and then I think within a week I was signed
And
up.
that was history.
Yep.
That was history. Wow, that's such a phenomenal story. And you were how old were that at that age? Like maybe about 17, 18?
No, it was my junior year, so I was 20 years old.
Oh wow, okay. So you were that. I just looked. You're a young guy, man. You're a young guy. Me and you are the same age, brother.
You know what?
And that's a beautiful thing. It seems like we've been knowing each other for ages and ages and ages. And it seems like when we were there together back then, it seemed like we were old then, but we were very
Well,
young.
we met at Jim Kettner's, didn't we?
Right. It was at a Jim Kettner event. I forget exactly which Jim Kettner event it was, but shortly I was already working with Ring of Honor at that time, kind of like doing my thing in the singles department there. I wasn't managing
Right.
yet. And ECWA, it was a big company for all of us independent wrestlers to be at. And to see you there the first time wrestling, it was like, wow, this guy, I know he's going to be in Ring of Honor soon. I just said that in the back of my head. The next show I went to for Ring of Honor, boom, you were there. How did you get scouted out with Ring of Honor itself? Because you didn't come to the embassy till later on. But how did you get originally scouted out with the embassy? I know you are good friends with Capetta.
Right. Yeah, and that's pretty much how it happened. It all kind of happened at the same time. Me wrestling for Kettner, me wrestling for Ring of Honor, and that's when I really started getting some publicity because I was just a New England wrestler that wrestled for Chaotic at that time, but I wanted to start branching out. So I remember Jim Kettner, Mike Cruel was supposed to wrestle somebody on Kettner's show, and that person pulled out or got injured. And Jim Kettner had called Capetta and asked him if he knew anybody. And Gary, and at the time I was living in Jersey. I moved down there for like 3 months just to kind of get into the scene. So Gary called me and he said, "Hey, you want to work for Kettner?" I said, "Of course." So I went out there and I wrestled for Mike Cruel. I wrestled against Mike Cruel. But before this happened, I met Gary Capetta when he was doing his book tour. He had written his book, and he came to the Chaotic Wrestling School at the time, and he did a speech, and he gave a speech to the class and sold his book. And I helped him carry his books back to his van, and he started asking me questions. He said, "Well, where are you going to be wrestling again?" I told him, and coincidentally enough, 2 nights later, we were on the same show. He was going to be selling his book again. He saw me wrestle. He really liked me. He gave me his email address. We exchanged, and he called Gabe Sapolsky.
Wow.
And I had submitted a tape to Gabe months earlier, but never heard anything back. But they probably were
you got that extra little icing on the top of the cake from Gary Capetta,
of course,
hopefully.
yeah. So then Gabe brought me in for one of those do or die type matches in Philly, and I think this was. I don't know if this was before or after the ECWA match. I can't remember. I have to look at the list of matches online or something, but it was around the same time.
Yeah, it was definitely around that same area. You still were working with ROH, and then you were doing some stuff with ECWA. It definitely was one of the highlights of your career. Winning the Pure Championship title from Doug Williams. I wasn't a part of that match.
No, I was still. I hadn't sold out to you yet. So.
Right. Oh, come on. Why do you have to say it like that in front of these peasants? I mean, these people.
Because
come
I'm
on.
I'm proud of selling out. That's why. Who's gonna look after me if I don't? Huh?
That's right. Embassy forever, my friend. But B. Antonio, I want to ask you, all right, how did it feel, all right, to win that championship from Doug Williams, who at that point in his career was already a very established wrestler in England. He was one of the most sought after wrestlers in the United States. How was that feeling winning that championship from him? And how did it feel to lose the championship once you were, had quote unquote sold out to the Embassy and lost the belt to that fool, all right? That guy that I used to think was a fool back in the day,
Jay
Jay
Lethal.
Lethal.
A fool is right. Doug Williams is a guy I was familiar with before wrestling for Ring of Honor, because there was a company in New England that brought him in for a few matches. This was when I first started, and I saw him live, and I was just blown away by his technical wrestling, his reversals, all his holds.
Right, he's an awesome
Yeah,
wrestler.
so when I got into Ring of Honor, I knew that I was going to be stepping up in competition, because that's where most of the top independent guys were, if not all of the top guys.
Right.
So,
right.
Yeah, wrestling Doug was cool. That was my first time wrestling him in a singles match. Winning the belt from him was cool, but the better part of the whole story was that it was in Boston. So,
Wow. The whole family was there. Everybody
and
was
Boston
there.
was the one place where I was pretty well liked. So, it was cool. It was a good night, and the pure title, I think. I know Ring of Honor was going to bring it back, and I'm hoping they still are bringing it back. But it was something that was unique in its own way. It set the rules, and I just think it should have maybe lasted a little longer. But
oh yeah, I definitely agree with you. Also, it was definitely something original in their wrestling business. I really didn't see that concept or that type of a title throughout the wrestling industry. The fact that it went away, I don't really understand why. But there was a time where, when the pure title was out, the wrestling business was kind of like, we were, Ring of Honor was the underdog company. But kind of when Ring of Honor went mainstream, it was like, oh, we got to do what the mainstream people do. Not to say that that's what Ring of Honor did, but I think that's what it ended up evolving into. Do you kind of look at it like that?
I think you got to understand from a wrestling company's perspective that when you become a TV company, there's more people watching the TV show than there are there live. So you've got to kind of attract the casual wrestling fans, but also try to keep the pure wrestling fans that started watching you when there were underground tape trading and all that stuff. So it's a fine balance between having a wrestling show with characters and pure wrestling, because if you do all of one of those two, you might alienate a certain group of people.
Right.
So it's hard, man. I from going to a product that was purely pure wrestling and work ethic based, then to go to a TV platform, you kind of got to understand why they went away from pure wrestling a little bit, but there's still ways to have elements of that and still be a TV show with characters. And that's a difficult thing nowadays, because people's attention span in wrestling is, the fans are so much shorter. They don't think about what next week's show is going to be about. They want right now. So
they want right now. And it's crazy because this year, 2020 was starting out really, really good. I know that it was starting out really good for you. You've been having good years, prior to 2020, especially when you were doing the RJ Brewer thing, but I know you were really looking forward to taking your main squeeze to Las Vegas, all right, for the past and present show. Huh? You were gonna take your main squeeze. Do you have a girlfriend?
I don't know who's gonna listen to this after this, so let's just say no comment, huh?
I mean, I know it was a bummer, all right, to get the email from the ROH officials that the ROH past and present event was canceled. I mean, before that, what were you really looking forward to? It was like maybe 15 years, maybe about 10 years, 8, I don't know how long since you've been to Ring of Honor. What were you looking forward to the most if that show
So
I
hadn't been in Ring of Honor since I think 2006 or 2007. So it was a good 13 years since I had been there. And so when I stopped wrestling in 2014, I took 4 years off of wrestling. I never retired. I don't believe in retiring, because a retirement in wrestling is irrelevant because everybody comes back. I just stopped taking. Like I don't want to use the word retire because I think that's for older people. I'd rather just stop taking bookings, and if I decide to go back, great. If not, it was fun. You know what I mean? So
Right,
I took
right.
4 years off. I did one show in New Zealand. I got banned from the country, and then and then that was it for another 2 years. And then I came back and
Whoa. Go back.
here
Go
we go.
back. You said you got banned from where?
So I
The
went to New
country.
Zealand for a show. It was a New Japan Pro Wrestling show, a joint show with a company out in New Zealand, and Rocky Romero booked me
Right.
for it. And I was talking shit about New Zealand and how America is a better country.
I remember that. I got a memo. I got a memo in the Parliament office. I remember that they were trying to ban you from coming into Ghana, but I had to step in. I had to step in and iron that out. So did you straighten it out with New Zealand, or are they still
Well, so
mad
I'll
at
tell you
you?
what happened. So I was talking smack about New Zealand. I said this was like, I was cutting promos about a month before. I said that I was going to come out because the show was the weekend after the election, the Trump and Clinton election. So I said, I'm going to come out there and I'm going to celebrate Donald Trump's win. I told everybody he was going to win. Nobody listened to me. So anyways, so when I went out, this has nothing to do with me being banned from the country, but when I went out there, I remember grabbing the microphone and telling the fans in New Zealand that one of the big reasons the U.S. is better than New Zealand is because of this. And I pointed to the big screen and Trump showed up. And they were booing in the building. But anyways, I went there. I had a good match. But when I was flying into New Zealand, and New Zealand is an island that's very strict about bringing in food and agriculture because, of course, it's an island. They don't want any foreign stuff on there.
Oh, I know who show it is. Mana, right? Mana?
No, I didn't see.
He might be the promoter. I'm not sure, but go ahead.
He wasn't the promoter. But anyways, when they were giving the speech about not bringing food into the country, I was sleeping as we were landing, and I had an apple in my bag. So they pulled me over, and they said, they said, we got to talk to you. So they brought me into a back room, and they said, you have an apple. I said, I'm sorry, I'll throw it out. And they said, it's too late. You've already brought it into our country. So they tried to give me like a $500 fine. I told them I didn't have $500. I said, we take credit cards. I said, well, I lied. I said, I lied. I lied to them. I said, I don't have any credit cards on me because I didn't know.
They sound like they went to the Prince Nana School of hustling, but go ahead.
They told me that it's a serious offense, and they took down my address, and they said they're going to send a bill. And then I asked a bunch of the guys, I said, if you don't pay that and you come back in here, you'll get arrested or deported. And so I'm not allowed back in there unless I want to pay a fat fine or go to jail. So.
Oh man, that's terrible. All right, you know what? I'm gonna talk to my friends over there at the embassy in New Zealand so we can straighten that out. Because someone like you, Mr. R.J. Brewer and Mr. John Walters, you need to be in every place. Do you like to travel?
I love to travel, but less and less. I like to travel by plane, and I like to be on a plane. I don't like airports. I don't like delays.
Right.
And air travel used to be fun. I don't find it fun anymore. So if I can drive somewhere, I'd rather drive 10 hours and fly an hour and a half, to be honest with you.
Right. No, I totally makes sense. Believe it or not, I would love to drive everywhere. If I can drive to every place, even if I had like a Winnebago, I would do it. I don't mind flying, but it's just something that I never really enjoyed. The only thing that I did enjoy about flying was getting back home quickly. So that was the good thing. But let me ask you this before we totally run out of time on you, because I know you got to go back to your workouts, all right? You have my little puppy friend, huh? You have my little puppy friend to feed, huh? I have to go eat some shrimp cocktail,
He's not happy about this interview. He wants attention. Huh? He doesn't want me sharing it with
you. I can imagine, all right? I can imagine. But let me ask you this. What do you think the current state of the pro wrestling is, and America in general? What's the current state of the pro wrestling business, and what's the current state of America right now? Because obviously there's a lot going on. Recently a young gentleman was shot down in Georgia. while out on a jog. I saw the video footage to that, and I really don't know the full story, but it really broke my heart to see that happen. To see people getting fired, all right, from WWE, people who need the money right now to support their family. What is the state of the wrestling business, and what is the state of America
Well,
right
I
now, John?
I said a long time ago that everything eventually goes away. Look how long the circus was around for, and now you don't see it, right? So there's a chance pro wrestling may disappear at some point. I think you might have little, a traveling show independents that maybe do. It might end up being like the circus where you have a show here or there, but. I mean, I just read somewhere that Triple H sold $1 million worth of stocks. I mean, why would he do that if the business is set to boom? You know what I mean? Maybe they
Right,
know something
right,
we don't. With this whole virus, I think big sporting events will be the last thing to come back, and whether or not companies like that want to weather the storm and lose a lot of money in the meantime, that's on them. So when it comes to pro wrestling in general, I think that man, like wrestling fans are going to always watch, but are there going to be enough people watching and spending money, especially in a recession, to make the shows profitable for a lot of these companies? And that's what you got to ask yourself. I don't think the love of wrestling has gone away. I think people still like it, but the generation now is less character driven and more based on moves. And the more people are talking
right.
about the more
And the
people are
thing,
talking about your moves, the less they're talking about you as a person, and it's you that's going to sell the tickets, not
right,
one move. Because once they see
right.
the move a couple times, they don't care anymore. So,
They
so
don't
I,
care
I don't know.
anymore.
I don't know what's going to happen with that, man. I think anybody's guess is as good as mine. But don't be surprised if at some point wrestling does go away. But it'll be interesting to see if they start allowing live events back sometime this year, and whether some of these companies like WWE, AEW, Ring of Honor can start getting back in front of live crowds and what those crowds will be like. So time will tell. I think the next year is going to be very
Right,
interesting.
right.
As for the yeah,
It
as for the country, man, like I saw that thing in Georgia too, and I always say that when you see footage or you hear a story that there's always going to be two sides, but I can't see any situation in that one where anybody can tell me that was justified. I mean, they hunted the guy down. You know what I mean? Very, very,
right,
yeah,
right.
very
Like an
disturbing.
animal.
Imagine going for your jog and being hunted down, and uh, even if there was burglaries in that neighborhood, it's not your job to track down some guy that's jogging. If you think that might be him, call the police. You know what I mean? But
Right,
man, I'm
right.
very big on individual freedom, individual choice. I don't like searches and seizures. I don't like assumptions. So until there's solid proof that somebody did something, you leave the people the fuck alone and mind your own business. So uh,
Absolutely.
I think the country's going to go through a very weird transition in the next couple of years. I think the economy is going to be down for a long time. I don't think this is going to just rebound, because I've told people before this even happened that our economy was all an illusion for the past 10 years. People just borrowed and borrowed and
Wow.
borrowed. If you look at it, people said the economy was so good and it was booming. Then why are all these companies filing bankruptcy 2 weeks after the things closed down? That tells you they were over
Right.
leveraged, right? And
And everybody, all of the employees are broke 2 weeks after they were
exactly.
told to stay home. And it's really a sad state of affairs right now in the United States. And it's always good to hear your side of things, because you always have a political view. What do you think is going to happen in September? I mean, during
In
the
November,
voting
well,
season, real quick.
before this virus hit and crushed the economy, I would have bet my life savings and all my houses that Trump would have got reelected. I still think he probably will, but it's going to be harder for him now. I think a recession was coming regardless, because a lot of sectors were already in a recession before this virus hit. So he's got the
Right.
benefit of blaming everything on the virus and saying, well, look what happened. I built up the economy. I can do it again. And I think a lot of people will probably give him another chance. And I also think that he'll probably lose the popular vote again, because a lot of people don't like him. But we got the Electoral College, man, and they're the ones that determine the election. So as long as those swing states that determine the election every 4 years vote for him again. I still think he's going to, because the turnouts for the primaries were a lot of people turned out to vote for him. And yeah, I think there will be some people that will turn on him, but whether it's enough, you got to remember, man, you can be a bad president, but all you got to do is be better than the other person. And who is the other person right now? You don't even see him talking. So,
You don't know. You don't even see him
right.
talking at all. It's sad.
So
It
if I
really,
had to put
really
my
is
money
sad.
on it right now, I would say that Trump will win again. But man,
Oh
here's my
my
thing.
God.
I think people need to put less stock in who the president is and more stock in themselves, invest in themselves, be smart, live within your means, and save for a rainy day, because this is the biggest rainy day of our life right now, and a lot of people are sinking. So maybe it's a wake up call for some
You're
people
right.
to live differently and prioritize stuff.
You're right. A few quick questions before I wrap it up with you. I want to go on and on and on and on because I can
I'll
talk
be
to you
back.
forever and ever, all right? Because you're a really good friend all night long, like it's
Huh? I'll be
1979,
back.
all
I'll be
right?
back.
How?
Huh?
Huh? But real quick, all right, and this is going to be real quick, all right? All right, like, I just wanted to know what was one of your most memorable matches of all time
All time.
from you?
That's difficult. Okay, so a match that wasn't the best match. It was a good match, but it wasn't like a legendary match. But it was because of where it was and what it was. Is in 2000, my senior year. No, 2001, my senior year in college. I had a friend in college who had cystic fibrosis. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but it's a condition where your lungs fill with fluid and you got to constantly drink water.
Right,
So
right. I heard
me
of
and
that.
the guys
Yes.
I trained with, the Kowalski guys, we put on a benefit show at my college, and we raised a lot of money for the foundation. I wrestled Slick Wagner Brown in the main event, and
Oh,
one of my
great
favorite
guy.
opponents. It was about 500 people there. Most of them knew who I was because I was a student there at my school, and I jobbed out to to Wagner in the main event, in the place you could hear a pin drop. It was beautiful. It was a thing of beauty. An absolute
Classic. Do you have that on DVD, on
A
tape
friend
or
of a
DVD
friend of
somewhere
mine
or
has it
online?
somewhere, and I'm going to see if I can locate it, maybe put it on YouTube or something. But that was probably one of the most memorable in terms of meaning. And then, a lot of the Ring of Honor matches, man, wrestling. I wrestled Christopher Daniels in upstate New York in a 25-minute match. That was really a lot of fun. The times we did our embassy stuff, the Jay Lethal. It was cool that the Ring of Honor showed that recently on their site. And
Oh yeah, that was fun.
man, like every match is, even the matches that might have been bad or the matches that not a lot of people saw. Wrestling is one of those things where you're gonna remember everything, because it's not so much what the match was, it was that we're actually doing this, and it's just a fun job. So
That right there is one of the key ingredients to why I've been in the wrestling business so long. I know that these days a lot of guys really emphasize, oh, you got to know how to work, you have to know how to work, and of course, you have to know how to do the moves, you have to know how to fight in there. But I think the performance side is what has been missing over the last, let's say, 8 years, and I think that's why we haven't really seen a huge abundance of independent stars like we used to see back in the day. Because back in the day, maybe about 15 years ago, all of the major stars were on the independents. I mean, there were stars, big stars in WWE and so on and so forth, but the major ones were right there on the independents. So you're absolutely right. But real quick, uh, John, before you go, and again, I really had a great time talking to you. What are you working on now? What is John working on now? Where can the fans find you? What's going on? Are you going to be in WWE soon? Are you going to AEW? Are you going to the NXT women's division? What are you going to do? Are you going to manage that division?
your
What's
guess
going
is
to
as good as
happen?
mine, man. I'm hanging tight down here in Florida. Like I said, I'm gonna build a house in the mountains in Georgia within the next few years, and probably spend summers there, winters here. And if another wrestling opportunity pops up, or if Ring of Honor ends up rescheduling that past versus present, I'd love to be there. And I never say I'm done wrestling, but I don't know how much I'll do going forward. I guess it'll depend on how soon things start back up and how my body feels. But physically I feel as good as I did when I was 20. So I could go, and I'm ready to, and I'd like to do some more matches.
Yeah, you look like it, man. You look like it. Every time I see you posting on social media some of your workout plans, I'm like, wow, this guy right here still got it. He's still chiseled. I saw a couple of matches, and I'm always proud that I was affiliated with you in some way, shape, or form. Real quick, CM Punk, the first word that comes,
Oh man,
first thing that comes to mind.
I always got along great with Punk. I know a lot of people had heat with him, and he's kind of rough around the edges, and can come across kind of angry. But he was always good to me, man. Always when a lot of the guys from New England were going up to do TVs. This was when Punk was there and he was champ and stuff. When Punk was in Boston, he'd ask the New England guys if they knew me, and hey, tell John Walters I said hi. And I've had good matches with him, and I don't have anything negative to say about him, man. I've spent some time with him, and I know how some people can say he's cranky and he's this and that, but I judge people on how they've treated me personally, and I have nothing negative to say about him. So
that's awesome, Mike Bennett.
I don't know him too well, man. Like we both. I know.
Oh, you don't know Mike?
We've spent time together, but we've never, believe it or not, we're both New England guys. We never wrestled each other, and I don't even know how many shows I've been on with him. Probably not very many, because he wrestled more in the southern part of Massachusetts when I was doing my chaotic stuff. So we didn't really cross paths, but anytime we see each other, we're friendly and we know who each other are, and we might have chatted online before, but I don't know him personally very well, but I haven't heard anything negative about him. So. Yeah.
No, that's awesome. He's a great guy. Great guy. Him and Maria, they just had a baby girl, and I believe they have another child on the way. Great people. Unbelievable wrestler. I always thought you and him would make a great tag team for some reason. That's something that's always been in the back of my head. And real quick, and just to end it off, I want to say thank you again, John, for coming down to my show. All right. I know that you're a busy guy. You know that Prince Nana is a busy guy. All right. After this, I'm going to be able to go into the sauna and just relax. All right. With my feet out and getting my feet rubbed. All right. Finally. But before we go, is there any advice? All right. Is there any advice that you would give the young up and coming professional wrestler, referee, manager, announcer, commentator, promoter, anybody trying to get into the professional wrestling business? What would be the best advice that you would give them?
I will give the advice that Mike Hollow gave me, and that is that your name is pretty much all you have in the business. So if you have a bad match, you'll almost always be forgiven for it. But if you have a bad attitude and you're known as a guy that you can't do business with, that will almost never escape you, that image. So be nice to people, be polite, work hard, and be humble. That's it.
John, thank you so much for coming on to the show. I'm going to call you back later on so you can give me some tips on what type of vegetables to eat with the rest of my food. I love you, man.
All right. Later.
Thanks for joining me for another episode. I'll see you later, fools.
Then you might as well be